Imagine waking up one morning to a world that looks exactly the same. The cities are still there. The roads are full. The markets are open. Nothing appears broken. And yet, something invisible is missing. Something small enough to go unnoticed, but powerful enough to affect what billions of people eat every day. About 75% of global food crops depend on pollination, not machines, not algorithms. Living organisms. Now imagine they begin to disappear. Not all at once, but steadily, silently, globally. Pollination is one of the most important processes on Earth, and one of the least understood. Bees, butterflies, birds, bats moving between flowers. Each movement seems insignificant, but together they sustain entire systems, ecosystems, agricultural, global food supply chains without pollination. Fruits fail to farm, seeds are not produced, crop yields decline. It is not just about food existing, it is about food continuing to reproduce. Walk through any supermarket. Apples, almonds, coffee, chocolate, all depend on pollination. Remove that process and the system weakens. Now image 9 removing that process. The shelves don't empty overnight, but the system behind them begins to weaken. Scientists have observed bee populations declining. In some regions, entire colonies collapsing, a phenomenon known as colony collapse disorder, first widely observed in the mid-2000s in North America. In Europe, worker bees leave the hive and never return. The queen remanence, the food remanence, the system breaks, and bees are only part of the story. Wild pollinators, often less monitored, aid also declining, in many cases even faster. Some studies suggest that certain insect populations have declined by over % in recent decades. There is a system under pressure: habitat loss, monoculture farming, pesticide exposure, climate instability, parasites and disease. Each factor alone is manageable. Together they create systemic stress. Pollination depends on timing. Flowers bloom at the right time. Pollinators arrive at the right time. But climate change disrupts this balance. Flowers may bloom earlier. Pollinators may not adapt fast enough. The result? Missed interactions. A system that once worked in harmony begins to fall out of sync. Collapse does not begin with absence. It begins with inefficiency, fewer visits per flower, lower pollination success, reduced yields. Farmers begin to notice smaller fruits, inconsistent harvests. Declining quality. At first, it appears as natural variability. But over time, the pattern becomes unmistakable. When natural systems weaken, humans attempt to compensate. In some regions, farmers already perform manual pollination. Using brushes, moving pollen by hand, tree by tree, flower by flower. It works, but only at a small scale. Scaling this globally would be labor-intensive, costly, logistically unrealistic. Pollinators do more than support crops, they sustain diversity. Without them, fruit and vegetable diversity declines. Nut crops are severely affected, ecosystem balance shifts. Staple crops like wheat, rice, and corn continue. Calorie production may remain relatively stable, but nutritional diversity declines significantly. More vulnerable as yields decline, supply decreases. Diets become less varied, less nutritious. Prices rise, markets respond. Countries dependent on agricultural exports face instability. Import-dependent nations face increased vulnerability. Food becomes more expensive, less predictable, less accessible. Especially for lower-income populations. The global economic value of pollination is estimated between $235 and $577 billion annually. If pollination declines, these costs do not disappear. They shift into higher production costs, increased labor, reduced efficiency. Agriculture becomes more expensive to sustain. Food insecurity does not begin with famine. It begins with instability. Families adapt. Cheaper food, reduced variety, lower nutritional intake. Over time, this affects public health, economic stability. Social systems, the year is 2045. This is not a prediction, but a scientifically modeled scenario. In many regions, pollination is no longer reliable. Some farms depend on controlled environments. Others rely on artificial or manual methods. Food still exists, but abundance is gone. Certain foods become rare, others become luxury items. The system is not isolated. Pollinators connect. Ecosystems, agriculture. Climate systems, the Amazon influences rainfall. Rainfall influences crops. Crops depend on pollinators. Remove one layer, the system adapts. Remove several, the system destabilizes. This would not look like a sudden disaster. No explosions, no immediate breakdown, just gradual change, fewer fruits, higher prices. The planet is one. Thank you for watching this video.